We're back. Which episode is this? 25, 26,
I think it's
27?
26.
26.
Or should we check before? It's like we say it's 25, but in reality, we already have a 25.
I think it's the 12th episode we're doing because hold on. We started episode 15.
Oh yeah, you said you want okay, yeah, we had an intro episode of episode 15. And then we started at 16.
So we're on 26 because today's the recap episode.
Yeah.
CGC recap episode, 10 episode recap. As much as this is for our listeners and viewers, this is more so for ourselves because we learned from season 1. We did 14 episodes and we didn't take notes. And now we don't know what those episodes are all about. 14 episodes that we need to rewatch because we have no idea what the hell they're about.
I think we got the gist of it. A lot of it kind of went into the back of our minds for those particular episodes. And then we just started implementing it throughout the year in 2021. I think one of the biggest was mainly continue to foster relationships, build your online presence, focus on SEO, treat your business like a business. Those were the main things that we talked about.
That's the most generic stuff you could ever bring up.
Well, that was the gist of a lot of the things. And to be honest, if we start diving through a lot of these episodes, I know.
Look, it sounds like when you go to one of those what do you call them? Those entrepreneurs on Instagram, and they go like, you wake up at 7 o'clock. You wake up at 4 a.m. You go to the gym for an hour. You work 6 hours, and that's it. You do that for a year, and you're good.
The ironic thing, though, is that a lot of those fake entrepreneurs, they're spouting things that they have heard from actually successful people because it actually worked for them, but they actually applied it. These entrepreneurs that regurgitate this stuff, they say it and post those motivational quotes on Facebook, but they don't actually do any of that. They just regurgitate it. But the funny thing that I noticed about the latest 10 episodes that we did as we were coming back into it, a lot of the same ideas, topics were kind of being revisited, but it was just kind of like with different people's experiences. Everyone talked about how SEO was very important, but everyone had different degrees of.
No, not everyone.
Sorry, but
no, it was a couple of
them did.
What I noticed is that I mean, we could look at our notes over here. SEO was mentioned once, twice, 3,
4. Okay, 4 times at least.
4 episodes, but they all had like every couple of guests kind of were regurgitating the same thing in a way. Big focus was on creating strategic video.
Yeah,
a lot of guests were talking about that.
Yeah.
Strategic video, results-based videos. I mean, we're gonna go through all of these in this episode anyways. We'll just take it off. But maybe we should just start going into it right from episode 16.
Yeah, let's just dive right into it. So episode 16, we had Bridget from Video Productions. And I don't know about you, but I felt like that episode, I felt a little rusty just jumping right into it again after a full year hiatus. Almost.
It was actually pretty good. No.
Yeah.
Like because I edited it. It was fine. We actually got a lot of usable highlights out of that one.
Yeah, a couple of those cracked the 3,000 view mark on Instagram, which I still don't know how that happened, but
yeah, I know how.
Amazing.
So when we started posting Instagram reels, the first 4 reels we posted got 3,000 plus hits.
Yeah,
which surprised us because at the time
that's what we
were used to getting like 20 views on max, like on one of the episodes, even like on some of the IGTV videos you were posting. The reason for that is because when you first start posting on Instagram reels, Instagram tries to boost its reach to kind of get you like into the groove of their thing and everything. And then based on that, if people like the content, then obviously like the algorithm will favor it and everything. I think in terms of our content, I don't know why it kind of tapered off to around the 400 mark. I mean, our content is kind of niche in a way, but
that's why it is niche, and that is why it probably didn't continue to get that level of engagement. It makes sense that it got a little bit of a push at the beginning based on what you're saying, but there's a very specific type of audience that is looking for this type of content and is trying to learn from it. But if you look at the consistent views after that, it kind of started to get a little bit more consistent of maybe 300, 400, 500, 600, which is kind
Yeah,
of the audience
yeah.
that we were typically trying to reach out to anyway.
I mean, we weren't
It,
doing this for the numbers game anyway, so it doesn't
yeah,
really matter. It was just a cool thing we noticed.
yeah,
Definitely IGTV and TikTok. Oh, sorry, not IGTV. Reels and TikTok do pretty well for us. Everything else is kind of 30-ish views, but those two platforms pretty interesting.
yeah. Why don't we dive into a little bit of some of the topics that we discussed in this episode? Maybe like the top 2 or 3 per episode, I think would be a good
Sure, sure.
kind of guideline.
I mean, the meat of this episode was the importance of pivoting. So
Yep.
what Bridget did with her business was she was doing predominantly live action video. And then when the pandemic hit, she wasn't getting any of that. So she pivoted into animation video. And
Mhm.
she's doing really good on that front, getting a lot of work and everything. So her business is now where it was in the past, 90% live action, 10% animation. Now it's the other way around. So the main lesson from that is sometimes you need to pivot your business to survive.
And more generically to say you have to adapt.
Adapt. You have to adapt.
Yeah. Adaptability is so key. And if any of the businesses that failed or went under during the pandemic, it's because of that. They didn't get the chance to adapt. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it was an easy time for everyone, but sometimes some people got hit a lot harder. I feel like at the time, if we were a lot further along and then we got hit by the pandemic, it might have been difficult for us to adapt. But because we were so nimble, as we mentioned before, we managed to kind of low key survive it, and just kind of power through it.
Do we know anyone that's gone under? Because I've like even people that I check online in the Toronto scene, they're still up there, still doing work.
Maybe the big ones. I think I'm more so talking about the smaller type agencies, or the ones that don't really treat their businesses like a business, right? I think
So
that's
it was, I
probably where
guess,
a lot of
just
people
freelance.
suffer.
So what? So I guess just freelancer slash I'm kind of a business owner, kind of just went back to being freelancer or
Maybe.
just pulled out entirely.
Maybe. I mean, a lot of these other companies, they probably are still going, but they probably still took a hit to the point where it just kind of took them back several steps, right? So I think that's more so what happened. To be honest, I feel like everyone is already very COVIDed out. I don't know if that's the right phrase.
That's
Everyone
not a
knows that it
word.
was. I don't think it's a word, but you know what I mean. They're tired of it at this point. We're all kind of moving past it. So let's kind of also talk about some of the other interesting things. And what was this one? Business plans are just a guideline. I found this pretty funny because it's a good way to get your business started, thinking about what you want to do, how you want to do it, especially when you don't have a lot of experience. But it shouldn't be the be all end all. If you put something in your business plan, that shouldn't be necessarily set in stone. If you need to adapt, if you need to change your business model, you can by all means go for it. The business plan is an ongoing process, and it's constantly changing. So that was a pretty funny one that I
It's
thought
like
we did there.
Barbosa says in parts of the Caribbean, it's not so much a rule as it is a guideline. That's what I always thought of when I read
That
that.
is a good one. I like that. I can hear his voice
with the
already.
parlay bit.
The code is more of a guideline as such. Which is ironic because it's a code.
The code. The other one I really liked from this episode is that video is a high touch business. And what she meant by that is that there's a lot of touch points in the video process, right? You're
Yeah.
constantly like guiding your client through it, getting their input, having a checklist and everything. It's not really an automated process.
Yeah.
There's a lot of involvement in it.
Yeah. Like you have to involve your client because you want to make sure that what you're producing for them is exactly what they want. It's very rare where a client will come to you and say, I want video, make it. And then we wait till we final delivery. I feel like that probably only happens in very niche parts of the industry. Like for example, if you were a very popular product videographer who created a lot of product videos, close-ups, things like that, you might have a brief that you work with the client, but the client can probably send you the product and then you just work with your own team or by yourself in studio, produce the product, deliver it, and that's it. That's probably one where there wouldn't be as much of a high touch business model, but otherwise in almost every other aspect of video, it is. So it was a nice kind of turn of phrase that she pointed out, which I really liked.
Yeah, pretty much exactly what you said. And I guess if you're in the creative industry, I guess everything is high touch, not just video, but photography, graphics, animation, all high touch.
Exactly.
You said a good point during that episode too. You said you can't delegate a role you don't know, which is true. You gotta have at least a little bit of experience in varying roles, just so when you are hiring or you are delegating tasks, you kind of know what to ask for and then what you should be receiving.
Well, it's more so also that you need to know what you expect from that role. It's not necessarily, I think in that one, I was a little bit more so touching upon the point of you need to have experience, at least in some way, to understand what the role is so you can delegate it. But at the same time, I've learned that as long as you also know what you need from this role, what the responsibilities are, what the standards are, you've researched the role and you know that it could be very helpful for your business. If you know that, then you can delegate it as well. You can't just say, for example, I need a graphic designer, you hire one, but then you don't have a game plan for them. Essentially, whatever role you have, in order to delegate, you need at least some kind of game plan, whether you know it or not that intensely.
Okay, so that's a little different than what you were saying in that episode.
A little bit, yeah. It was funny because I talked with a few people that had actually even commented on that particular episode, and it's not what I was saying. I'm changing entirely. I do agree with it, but it's more so also adding another element to it, where if you understand what is expected of the role, what the standards are, what the roles and responsibilities will be for it, then you can delegate that as well. You don't necessarily have to be able to be 100% perfect in it, but yes, if you do know how to do the role, if you need to step into it as well, that is another bonus, right? But again, it really depends on the business line of work that you're in. But I think in video, it is definitely it's better for your business if you are able to step into that role, because you never know. Sometimes projects change, and sometimes you need to put on a few different hats, as I'm sure everyone in this, I'm sure that everyone who has been listening has seen that I wear many different hats on every episode. So I've taken a very kind of subtle hint to that with each episode.
Was that what you meant when you said you need to wear many hats? You just strictly meant you just need to wear many different physical hats, or did you mean
interpret it
metaphorically?
as you will.
You know, that actually flies into a lot of the topics that have been coming up with regards to you know, who you kind of need to bring into your business. We've been asking a lot who your first hires are, and a lot of the answers are pretty much like, look, when you get to a point, where am I going with this? Like, you basically, I guess in terms of delegating, you kind of, if you are an entrepreneur and a business owner like us, you kind of will know what that, like, how to delegate properly, because you are wearing all the different hats that you will have to delegate in order to grow the business. So I guess on that end, the biggest takeaway would be you need to learn how to communicate properly to your delegators, or communicate your delegations.
You mean your
properly.
delegatees?
Because I think it was Matthew Collins. He was saying from Capture the Moment Media, he was talking about how yeah, you need to delegate, but you also need to know how to communicate properly, because as an entrepreneur, if you've been doing it all yourself, you kind of have the game plan kind of in your head, but the person you're hiring might not have that game plan or your vision exactly, so you need to learn how to communicate that properly to them as well.
Yeah, and especially when you're hiring people, you have to hire people that can take a load of the workload off of you. I don't know.
A load of the workload.
A load of the workload.
They take the load off, so you just have the work.
Yeah, exactly. Where they would basically take over a part of the business that is taking up a huge amount of your time. And I remember the first time we started to kind of do that was when we were delegating the editing role with a lot of our client projects, because when we first started, we were basically going from project to project, right? One small project for about a week, 2 week, 3 weeks, we're done. Then we move on to the next one. We were very self-sustaining, self-sufficient business at that point, the two of us. And then when we started noticing that it was one project popped up, but then another person called, then another person called, then another person called. At the same time, we're having 3 to 5 projects happening at the same time. You and I can't do all of that. And we needed to bring other people that we can trust and develop relationships with. And that's how we were able to kind of expand and grow. And that kind of saved us also in 2020, when there was a little bit of an influx of work towards the end of the year, and we managed to manage all those projects.
Well, earlier this year, it saved their butts too, because we brought Nick, our editor, on, and I don't know how we would have finished that project if it wasn't for him.
That project wouldn't have happened without him at that point, because producing 88 videos in 1 month is not something that is very doable or easy if you don't have people helping you, especially when you're on set constantly throughout the day. You need someone who is working on those videos, pumping them out as they go. That's the only way to do it. So
okay, last point before there's 2 more points. Just quickly on SEO, we touched on, everyone already knows at this point, yes, SEO is very helpful and everything. So yes, we're just going to quickly pass from that point to the last point of that episode, which was talking about how it's hard being a solopreneur if you don't have like a team. So I remember Richard was talking about how, like, for her, when she gets a good project or whatever, like, she doesn't have anyone to high five except for herself.
Self five.
But she has like developed a strong network with the other businesses around her office. So I guess if you are a solopreneur, it's good to develop a type of network of other businesses, so you can have that sort of emotional support system in place, not just for when you're running into problems, but also when you're doing well. It's just good to be able to talk to someone about that.
You want to share your milestones with people, with someone at least, right? And it's not also just surrounding yourself with certain people within your network, but it's also sometimes the environment, having sometimes even a workspace to go to where a lot of other creative and like-minded people are all working on their own projects, their own businesses. That's why I've always found interesting these shared workspace type, I wouldn't call them incubators really, but it's like a shared workspace.
So work hub, isn't that what they call it?
Work hub, yeah, work hub. That's the word. Where basically just a lot of entrepreneurs all get together and just work on their projects. It's just a creative space it's almost, you know what it's like? It's almost like university, but for adults and entrepreneurs, kind of. It's
like the library section of the university.
That's it.
That's third floor of the Ryerson Library.
Everybody's quiet. Nobody makes noise.
No, that was the one that was the open concept where you could talk. Wasn't that it?
Oh yeah, that was the what was it? I forget what it was called. But yeah.
Anyways, they get the point.
Yeah. But one thing just to note about these shared workspaces is Google will be a pain to get your business registered if you're going to be working out of
No. So, you're going to confuse them. If you want to get the verification code so you can change your address on Google Maps, it is a nightmare to deal with. We're trying to come up with, I mean, they're supposed to mail you the code. We've been waiting over a month. I don't know what's going on. It's been over a month. They say they'll send it in 2 weeks. So we get in touch with them, and then they're like, okay, we could do a video verification so we'll go on Google Meets and whatever. And we're now registered with this work hub place. And then apparently because their signage is not there, it doesn't count. So I'm like, okay, can you at least send us the verification code? And it's like, yeah, it'll be sent by mail. I'm like, it's been over a month and I've done it twice. And they're like, okay, we can't do anything about it because that's a different department. I'm like, can you connect me with someone with that department? They're like, it's all automated. We can't help you. And I'm like, this doesn't help me at all.
What I find very funny is that over video call, they want to see a business card. They want to see signage. They want to see your third born. But with
what size underwear do you wear? But yeah,
what type of underwear you wear. But the verification code, You
They
get
just
that. It
mail it
doesn't matter if
to
you're
random
even a
places.
business.
Yeah,
Yeah, makes no sense. Anyway,
no sense.
but
It's a little
we
Google.
digress.
That's a little Google rant. I hope they hear this and figure it out for us. Hopefully, this
Yeah,
clip goes
Google, are you
viral.
listening? Are you listening?
I mean,
Please.
they're listening for sure. I don't think they're listening, but not actively listening.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay.
Anyways,
Next was episode 17. We had Judah Hernandez from Black and White Media. And Judah had a lot of metaphors in that episode.
he had a lot of good sayings. But I really liked a lot of the topics that he also really dove into, which was about the need to educate your clients on the video process. And after that episode, I noticed a little bit more when when I was talking to clients about the process or anything video related. Some of them who haven't done video before, they want to know, they want to understand it a little bit more, and you have to be open to just even explaining the most basic of things. To you they might be basic, but to them it helps them understand how video fits within their business. Because if they think to themselves, a lot of people come to us and say, hey, is it possible to get a video done in 3 days? That's because they don't know how it works, how much time and energy goes into it. And that is what part of the reason why all of last year and this year we've been creating a lot of our own educational blog video content that kind of dives into different aspects of the whole video production industry and the whole process. And I think it's really helped a lot of our leads and clients understand how we work and how the
I
world,
mean,
how
we
the video
definitely
world
use,
works.
yeah, I mean, we definitely use it as reference points, if, especially at the beginning, we'll say, hey, if this is your first time, check out this video, or we're going through this process right now. Here's a little video that explains it. Oh, okay, you need to prepare for an on-camera interview. Here's another blog content that'll just explain the whole process to you and what you need to prep for. Definitely helpful.
Yeah. Anyways, as I was saying, you need to discover your clients' challenges. When you're talking to them, if you don't know what pain points they have, what challenges they're facing, what problems they're trying to solve, if you don't understand that, there's not much you can do in terms of recommendation. Sometimes clients might come to you already knowing what those are, which is great, because then you can work, you will know immediately what type of videos will work for them. But sometimes they might come to you and say, this is, we're thinking about doing a video. Very open-ended though. Where do you start? And always the best way to start is figuring out what challenge are you trying to tackle? What problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah, and sometimes they'll come up to you and say, we need, I don't know, this type of video, and we just need a number for it. So this also is applicable because you need to, again, it's like going to a doctor, right? You don't go to a doctor and say, I need this medication for my back. You go to him and you say, I got a back problem. What do I do? And then he diagnoses you and says, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
Actually, you just twisted something out of go. I don't know here. You need surgery. You don't need medication. Right. So it's the same thing when it comes to video, right? When a client comes to you, you need to diagnose and see what the real problem is, not the problem they're presenting you with. So you have to keep asking questions. You need to, again, discover your client's challenges, and then you need to kind of prescribe the solution to that problem. Again, find the problem and deliver the solution. That might not be what they want to hear either. Like sometimes if they say, no, we want this kind of video, and then you say, actually, I think you need this. If they disagree with you, you have two options. You can either go ahead and still do what they want, or you can say, look, if you don't trust my expertise, then maybe you should go to someone else, go to another doctor, video doctor.
Dr. Kyrill, Dr. Dario, it's got some ring to it.
Maybe you want to go to the doctor from The Simpsons, maybe that guy will help you out.
Yeah. I mean, look, some clients are simply looking for yes people, and that's it. They just want people to boss around. And if they're not willing to listen to you, that's a very good indicator of the type of relationship you might have with them. And you have to decide for yourself, are these the types of work relationships you want to have with your clients? Or do you want to form a partnership, a collaboration, something where you both work together and grow from? So these are questions you have to also ask yourself.
It has to reflect your philosophy, right? So if you're pitching results-based videos, right? You also want to have results-based relationships, right? You don't want a relationship with a client that ends up with zero result, right? If you create a video just because you were a yes man and it wasn't the right video for them and the result is zip nothing, then you're getting nothing out of that relationship either. Sure, you'll get a paycheck, but is it a continuous paycheck? Probably not.
You bring up a very valid point, because one of the things I even tell a lot of leads now is that we're not looking for just a one project client. That's not what we're looking for. We don't want to just take this lead in, do a quick video for them, send them on their way, and that's it. That's not what we're about. We want to grow with our clients. We want to see them succeed. I tell them this even in our first introductory call, because I let them know right away what my intention is of working with them, how I see our business relationship moving forward. And a lot of the time I get great responses from that. And a lot of them are intrigued, because probably a lot of people don't tell them that right off the bat.
Yeah.
I can imagine a lot of production companies, they get a call and someone says, I need a video. Okay. So when do you want to do the video? It's like, that's not the first question you ask.
When is the
Or-
due
or-
date? When do you want to do it? What's your budget? They might not even ask the budget until deep into the sales process. But yeah,
Yeah.
like, I mean, for sure. And again, this goes back to client education. A lot of clients are not familiar with our world. So this is why you have to really educate them, not just on the video process, but your process as well.
Exactly. And if you don't know your process,
You
get
got to
a new
sit down and
process.
figure that out.
Exactly. And that was actually another thing that helped us even that was actually another topic that we discussed throughout the episodes as well, that you need to know how you're going to do the whole process from start to finish and get as detailed as possible. We all know the classic: pre-production, production, and post-production.
That's
But to a
just a
client,
small, that's just a small part of it. That's not even including all the, and then even those are broken down into. Here's the
exactly.
thing. I think if you're a freelancer or you're just starting your video production business, you're just focusing on that. And even those processes are very basic, you know, they're not as
Yeah.
detailed as you think they are. You need to figure things out right from the introductory call or right when they fill out the form on your website. What's the next step after that? You got to figure it out all the way to contract signing and then pre-production. Then within pre-production, you got to have everything in place.
Yeah. Storyboarding, shot lists, you know, the classics.
Treatment. Yeah. But that goes to systems, which we talked about a couple of episodes further down.
I feel like what I'm seeing with this recap episode is we're kind of going from topic to topic, which I kind of like it. I like the more organic way of how we're going from it, but we do have to also highlight some of the key episodes that we talked about and those ones. And
We'll just go episode to episode, and this
Yeah,
might
yeah.
even be a two-parter.
I
already-
I was actually gonna say, I think this is gonna be like a 2, maybe even a 3-parter, depending on how long this
because
gets.
we're only on episode 17. We're on episode 2.
And
Technically.
we're already a half hour in.
Is it actually? Okay, wow.
Yeah. So who
Um,
knows? But
Okay, let's go to the next part, which was working on your proposal.
Yeah.
So that was one thing Judah was talking about, how when he really puts a lot more effort into his proposals, that's when he starts to close a lot more projects, which I agree, but we personally have taken a different approach to this. So we don't really refer to our proposals as proposals anymore. We
Yeah.
kind of just refer to them as summary meeting. And we actually,
Yeah.
Chris from Signature Video Group pointed this out, which is the episode after this, how your proposal should just be a summary or a recap of everything you've discussed up until that point. Basically, your
Yeah.
proposal, there's no surprises there. You're just doing a recap. This is what you came to me for. This is kind of the information I got from you. This is the solution I suggested.
This was the budget we discussed.
This is the budget we discussed. These are some more details. Okay, so do you want to move? Are we moving forward with this? Ball is
Yeah.
in your court.
That is how you have to look at it. And it's like the word proposal, I've noticed that it's like the RFP. It puts you in a position where the client is there to judge you, and what you're going to provide them is not good enough, and that you have to dazzle them. That's not what the point is from that project. The dazzling comes later when we actually produce the content for you, because you already know, especially what's going to be coming from that. The the proposal stage, yes, like you said, is more so the summary document stage. I didn't realize that we actually discussed that on the Chris episode, so that was like a nice kind of
Yeah, Chris was
referral from
talking
that.
about how it was just like it should just be a recap. You shouldn't be bringing up anything new, which makes sense because if you're doing things the right way, if you are discovering your clients' challenges, problems, and then you're talking about the solutions and everything, the like you're not supposed to be doing that at the end. You've done all that stuff. Like again,
Yeah.
RFP or a proposal is it's such a broken system because you're trying to sell them on you. So you are facing an uphill battle at that point, right? But
Mhm.
by the time you get to that stage, if you do things the right way, they're already sold on you. Like if they say no at that point, A, they wasted a lot of your time. B, you wasted a lot of their time. C, you didn't vet properly. Or
Yeah.
D, you screwed up big time.
Yeah.
You screwed up something earlier and now you're paying the price for it, right?
Yeah, the summary document, essentially, there shouldn't be any issues when you get to that point. Maybe just some clarifications or adjustments based on what was discussed. But think of it like this. If you were to say you came up with an idea when you're talking to a client, they're giving you their problems, their challenges, you're trying to figure out a solution for them. And then you come up with a cool idea. You tell them right in that initial call, it's like, this is what we're thinking that we can do for your project. It will solve this, this, and this because of this reason and this reason. What do you think? And then they'll be like, oh, since you put it that way, that's good. But imagine if you put it on a document. The way you write it is going to be interpreted very differently to how you would probably communicate it verbally or in person. It's like the classic broken telephone idea that we've discussed before. Uh, over a slide deck or anything like that, people are going to interpret it differently. Sometimes they need to hear from the person, the expert, what they're going to create for them. What is a document going to necessarily tell them aside from a little bit of a summary, right?
So that's another thing he discussed as well, how he presents his proposals directly to the decision makers, right? And so some other companies mentioned that as well. I think Chris mentioned it, and uh, Braden and Cameron from Your Story Agency mentioned that. Cameron was really big on that. How if he's presenting the proposal or whatever, he makes sure he gets the decision maker on the line, because again, there's no point playing that broken telephone game where you pitched yourself to someone who now has to pitch you to their higher up. That doesn't make sense, right? That
Yeah.
system is completely broken, and you're most likely not going to get the project doing it like that.
Yeah. Because sometimes you don't even know what potential bias that decision maker might have from that employee. Because sometimes higher ups might have certain opinions of what the capabilities are of
No, I
certain
don't. I
people.
don't even think it's that, Kyrill. I think it's just the
It
fact
could
that
be though.
I think it's just no, because then you're talking about a toxic environment. I think it's just the
Oh yeah,
fact that
true, true.
no one can sell you better than yourself, and
Yeah.
they're not going to be able to, like, there's certain things that you're just not going to put in that document. That might just be bullet points or whatever that you need to elaborate on. Again,
Yep.
if they're not the decision maker, you got to get them on. That's what we've started to do as well. It's working out pretty good. No complaints. Actually, if they say no, they don't want to, that's a red flag right there. So that goes back to vetting your client properly and getting them to go through your process, not just you going through their hoops. They also got to, you know, like you have a system, you need to have a system in place. And if you're doing everything right, that system works for you. If someone doesn't want to follow the system, go somewhere else, because otherwise I'm just going to waste my time. If you spend all this time developing a process that works for you, why would you break that?
Well, the other thing you also have to remember, or that people need to remember, is that this process is not just for us, but it's also for the client. It
Yeah.
is it is designed exactly in a way that helps deliver a good experience for them and help manage a lot of the questions and things that they have. Imagine, I remember early days, we would work on a client for a project. They would ask for a certain deliverable. We say, sure, something like this. Okay, great, perfect. We do the deliverable, we give it to them. But then that's when a lot of revisions start coming, because then the client is going to be like, oh, maybe we also need this. Oh, maybe we also need this. No, we also need this. But if you didn't go through the process in the beginning of trying to figure out what they need in the video a little bit more in depth that they can sign off on, then that's it. Then that means your system, you didn't have a system that worked. So that's actually sometimes a good indicator. If there's too many revisions happening in the post-production process, that means you clearly didn't do enough in the pre-production and working with your client to develop that part of the process further.
Yeah, just a small note regarding revisions, because we did talk, we had a really good episode on revisions. It'll be coming up after this sometime. You should also figure out a way not to let it get out of hand too much, because sometimes the revision process, even if you did do everything the right way, it could still pop up where it turns into like this mutation or this like cancerous tumor that's just going out of control. So I guess just for other production companies out there, it is a good idea to educate your client on the revision process.
Yeah.
So if you, after like a certain amount of revisions, you can't let them know after they've signed the contract and when you guys are in post-production that, hey, after the third one, you guys got to start paying, because that's going to cause problems too. So
Yeah.
one thing we've done, for example, is we've put that in our
expectations of what they need to know.
setting it,
communicate that to them.
yeah, we put that in our earlier documents, I think, even before onboarding. In our summary document, we put that we strictly outline, look, this is or I think it was in our onboarding documents, like this is part of our system, like we include these amount of revisions, it's outlined in this part of our contract. Again, you got to have transparency with your client, because you don't want it, it'll cause problems later on that don't need to happen. So this kind of loops into checklists as well. You need to have a checklist for your clients, and you need to let them in on those checklists, so that as they're going through the process with you, they're checking off on everything, right? So you break it down into however many stages: your onboarding, your pre-production, your production, your post-production. As long as they're involved with the process, then later on, when something does arise, you kind of like, you did your due diligence and they know everything, so it can't turn into a sour or bitter relationship.
Yeah.
Just a way of mitigating that.
Exactly. At the end of the day, you have to mitigate that. You have to make sure that they have a good experience. And sometimes if you realize that you made a mistake somewhere in the process, you have to do what you can to make sure, though, that the client is happy. Learn from that experience and apply it to the next project or with the next client. But with that, if you bring up too many issues while that project is trying to be completed, that's when a sour relationship could come from it, if depending on who you're communicating with, right? It might sometimes be a little bit easier if it's a long-term client that you've that knows you very well, then maybe you can kind of talk to them a little bit more frankly. But if it's sometimes a new client, you don't necessarily know each other that well as of yet. And that's why you have to really make sure you understand more in the you have to communicate these things more so in the pre-production so that you can avoid those problems.
Yeah. Again, setting expectations. That is key. That is the key ingredient in this. You gotta let, for both sides, what is their expectation of you and what is your expectation of them?
Exactly. It's a collaborative effort. It's not, you're not working for someone and they're not working for you. You guys are working together to achieve a certain goal or solve a certain problem. And this kind of also goes to one of the last points from our episode with Judo is nice phrase, a turn of phrase. The biggest challenge will always be yourself. So get out of your own way sometimes, right?
Yeah. In terms of other things we discussed in that episode, just quickly, you need people around you that you can trust. Obviously, this goes to having a strong team and just being able to delegate the work to people that, again, you trust. In terms of, I think the hardest part about that is hiring the right people. So secret to that, I don't know. You just have to trial and error it and get lucky, I guess. But that is one that I think a lot of people have trouble with, is just hiring the right people. So, but once you do hire the right people, then you should be able to trust them, and that'll make your team really well. And then I would
Yeah.
say last point before we move on to the next episode is video is the gateway to real problems. So by that he meant like when you figure out what the true pain points are, then you can apply the right solution to it. I guess this loops back to
Yeah,
problem
exactly.
solution.
Yeah, sometimes I think what he meant by that is like if you really want to figure out what potential problems or challenges you're facing in your business, try to make a video. The right company will ask you the right questions that you probably haven't even thought of. And then you can start thinking to yourself, oh, I don't know what my key message will be for this project. Okay, maybe I have to first figure out what I want to communicate for it before I even dive into it. Okay, thank you for letting me know. And that also goes to back to what we were saying, where we're trying to also help educate the clients. We ask these questions because they will ultimately help you in more than one way or another. I remember one time we did a discovery call with this one potential lead where I think it was like 5 of us in that call, and we were asking these questions, and then one of them got very defensive from us
Yeah,
asking these
I forgot
questions.
about that one.
Yeah, he said, "Why are you asking so many questions? Why do I have to answer these questions for you?" And we said, "We're trying to just understand your business
Your
and how we
business,
can
yeah,
help you."
they didn't know how their business worked. And the funny thing is that call ended that relationship, which I thought was hilarious, because we got a call from our contact there after that, and they're like, oh, I was really upset about the thing and the this and the that. And I was like, what happened? Like, we were just asking like simple, straightforward questions. Like, but again, I
We're
guess
just
they
asking
wanted,
like, what was your goal? How
yeah,
does your business work? What type of video do you, what kind of videos can we possibly make based on on how you guys operate your business? If you don't want to communicate that to us, then we can't help you. So that's fine. Honestly, I'm happy that project didn't go through. And that just
yeah,
affirmed a lot of the things that we talked about.
yeah. And I guess that it was just a red flag for us when they reacted that way. We were like, all right, we didn't mean anything, but I don't even know what you took from it, but okay, bye.
Some people are also naturally defensive. I noticed one thing that I find that is a defensive trait if you're talking with someone on Zoom is if they have a blank screen on purpose and don't want to show their face to you. To me, that's personally like a little bit of a red flag sometimes, because
Yeah.
it's like, why are we doing this over
I
Zoom if
think
you don't want
I
to show
think
me your
going
face?
forward, yeah, I think going forward, it's like no, like I need to see who I'm doing business with. Okay, we can reschedule this then, and then I would just take that as a red flag. Like
Exactly.
I think a lot of video production companies, well, I don't know how it is with the bigger ones, but at least for people like us, you really need to vet your
Yeah.
potential leads, because it's time consuming creating a video, and there's a lot of work, a lot of resources that need to go into it. It's a big time investment, and so it could be like a potentially bad money investment for you as well, because you got to hire people and everything. You need to vet your clients, man. Like if you're getting a bad vibe or they don't want to go ahead with the system you have in place, bye, go away. I don't need you. I got other people. I get email. We get emails every day. New people. I don't care. Bye. I got another lead.
Yeah, because
Someone else will come along that'll be better than you.
if you're working on that project and dealing with that headache, that's taking away time that you could be helping someone else who actually needs the help
Needs it
and
and is willing
wants
to
to
listen.
work
Yeah.
with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Why would you
It's all
put
a matter.
yourself through that?
Beginners do, because one, they don't know
You don't
better.
know.
Two, they need money.
They
Honestly,
need money. Yeah.
everyone experiences this in the beginning. I like I remember one of the very first projects we ever did was like this real estate company. I think it was based in Kingston or something like that. And we did most of the project. We finished the video edits, delivered them, radio silence for like 2 weeks from them. And then at the end, they said, "Oh, we don't really want these videos, so we're not
No,
going
no,
to pay you."
they asked us to do some edits. Now, mind you, this was, oh, actually,
2014.
no, Kyrill, I remember that project. They asked us to edit some of the videos they had edited.
Or
That's what
yeah,
it
something like
was.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
We
then
didn't
radio
even do much.
silence. Yeah, radio silence, and they don't want to pay. No, no, no. You're dealing with me, you pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've always been paid for every project. We've never not been paid for a project.
Take note from Henry Hill in Goodfellas, or no, Paulie from Goodfellas.
Polly, there's oh yeah. No, we always get paid for our work. Never not been paid for a project.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's like, to be honest with you. Never experienced it.
People, they don't have processes set in place. Processes are there not only to protect you, but
No,
also to protect the clients.
even when we didn't have processes, we still got paid for all of our stuff. But on the topic of payment, one new thing we've been doing is we before we start production, and now we're like 100% adamant about this, we get paid 50%, or we have a split of if
Or a
there's a
portion.
big time difference between when you guys sign the contract and the first production date, we do 15% deposit, and then 35 is due before production, and then the other option we have is 50% before production, and then the other 50 is due on the first draft. We don't mess around with this stuff, like, especially now that we're getting bigger and bigger projects. If we have to hire crew, that's
People
a
need to
big
get
chunk of,
paid.
yeah,
Yeah.
they got to get paid. I've never not paid a freelancer. In fact,
Yep.
we pay them the day of the day
We
the
try
day
to
the
pay
project is
ASAP.
done, we pay them.
The latest usually is something like, depending on obviously how big the project is also, but most of the time we pay within a week usually, because we've been on their end. We like the feeling of being paid right away after you've done the work,
Yeah.
not chasing people for months. It's not fun. So we want to take care of the people that we work with, because we understand what that's like. And these deposits that we're asking for from our clients, it's not just for us, it's also for you as a business. Imagine you have put $100,000 into the marketing for a certain campaign, and you hire a video production company, which is set to start shooting and producing a video a month before you need that video ready. You hire them, but you don't pay a deposit, and then 2 weeks later, when you're supposed to have set shoot, who knows what that company might be up to, because there's no deposit or anything set in stone.
No, but that's I think what you're saying is you need to set that in that situation. You should have signed the contract. Deposits are
You know what I
mainly
mean?
look,
Accountability.
look,
It's meant for accountability.
Deposits are just so they're in, it's more so commitment. You're committed down to this project.
For both. It's for both parties. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a commitment from one to the other, and vice versa.
No, because for us, if you give us the deposit, whether you gave us the deposit or not, I mean, we have it in our contract, but let's say back in the day, we just had the contract first and then we did a lump sum at the end.
We're still in.
Like, as soon as you sign the contract, we're legally bound, so it doesn't matter. It's more so we want that commitment from the client to go like, you can't back out. Like, you're committed to going through with this, right? Because again, we're gonna have to put a lot of work into this. So this deposit covers the pre-production work, the communications, the cast and crew scheduling. It covers a lot of stuff. And then also, like, imagine they cancel like the day before on you. Well, we've had stuff like that in the past, right? And at the time it was just me and you shooting, so it was all good. But imagine you hire someone and then you tell them like the day of or the night before, hey, it's canceled. Man, that guy probably took yours instead of someone else's project. So now they're short whatever their day rate is. And that's not fair to them. That ruins
your relationship. That ruins
with
your
them
relationship
too. Yeah.
With them.
It's not good. It's not right.
Yeah. Essentially, it's there just for accountability for everyone too. So anyways, I think that pretty much covers everything at this point from Judah's episode. Let's go with at least one more for now, and then.
Well, how far are we into this right now?
We're 45 minutes into this episode.
Really?
Already.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
this might be like a 3-parter. I like this.
Yeah. Well, I like it because essentially this is what we're basically doing is going through some of the episodes and kind of not rediscovering, but
going more into detail and on like the top, like the key points from that episode.
Exactly. I think we're finding the format now for these recap episodes, and they might even just be Lapse discusses topic, or I don't know, like it could have a completely different type of topic.
Never try naming something again.
Well, no, maybe not on the fly. I can't do it on the fly like this. I can do a lot of other things on the fly,
You
but
get all
I
the other
guess,
thing you could do on the fly is just the intros.
oh, come on. What is this guy? What is this guy saying right here? Come on. Anyways, for episode 18, we had Chris from Signature Video Group. And one really cool point that he really stressed was that an entrepreneur has to build a new skill every year, at least something, however big or small. You need to constantly be growing, not only your business, but you and your skill sets. You need to grow with your business. If your business is growing and you aren't, then something's wrong.
I think that's, I don't know what to elaborate on that. Like we've been experiencing it. I mean, granted, we're still new, so every year is like a big learning experience on many different ends. But yeah, I guess if you're an entrepreneur, the learning never ends. You know, school is never out.
Nope. Yeah, you graduated from school, but yeah, the school of life is something a little bit different, right? Getting too philosophical here.
Yeah. Other points from that episode we kind of already discussed. We discussed the broken telephone game, video as an investment, increasing output by increasing your team. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah, we talked about pretty much
self-explanatory.
most of these. Yeah, we
Yeah,
also
vetting
talked
your
about,
leads,
yep, increasing
SEO.
output by increasing your team. I mean, the video as an investment is actually something we kind of hinted at, but we didn't
Oh, we
really
didn't talk about
elaborate
it
too
yet?
much. But that's one thing that probably, at least clients that know what they're needing and they know what challenges they're trying to solve, they will automatically realize that the video is an investment.
No,
Uh,
no. That's not what it was. I remember this one.
no, I know, but I'm taking a point from
But
it, is what
the
I'm saying
client
as well.
the client doesn't realize that the video is an investment. It's our job to make them view it as an investment. That's what that point was.
Yes, if they don't at that point.
But they
I'm just
normally
saying that
never do.
yeah, because a lot of them also don't know what challenges they're trying to solve. If a client is coming to you is like, maybe we need a video. Why do you need a video? Because other people are doing it. That is a good example of a client that doesn't really realize how much of an investment it is. They know it's something that a lot of people are doing and will probably help their business, but they don't really know how it's tied to them. And the key is, in order to teach them that video is an investment, you have to tie it to their particular situation. Whatever their challenges or problems they are solving, if the video can solve that particular challenge or problem, then they will be able to connect the dots. It's about kind of connecting the dots and applying to their unique situations. Kind of.
No,
That's what I realized.
you're making it more complex than it is.
Am I
Again,
making?
yeah, you're making it way more complex than it was. Like the main gist of that was basically we were discussing how video production companies view videos as investments for their clients, right? But the client mostly sees it as a service or an asset, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Whereas you need to reframe your client's thinking to view the video as an investment. Because once you do that, then what happens is they're not looking at it as, okay, I need this 1-minute video with 2 15-second ads for the marketing campaign just because we need the video component part of it. And yeah, we'll put video ads and this and that. They need to view it as like, okay, I'm putting money to get this asset because it's going to give me a certain ROI.
Yeah.
So even when you're going through the discovery call and you're asking them questions related to this, it's supposed to get them to reframe their thinking. Because now, again, you're talking to them and saying, look, this video is going to be 10K, but what are you going to get out of this? And they need to be able to tell you, I'm going to get 100,000 out of this. Okay, great. That's a 10 times, you're getting 10 times what you're putting into this. That makes sense. Because then if you say like, okay, well, let's put a little bit more into this and you get 20 times, you'd have to be an idiot to say no to that, right? Whereas if you're viewing it just as an asset or a service, then wow, going from 10,000 to 20,000, whoo, that's a big step, right? But if you say it another way, you say like, look, instead of you're gonna put 10,000, you're gonna get 100,000 out of this. Well, let's do this. You need to hit 200 for an extra 10. You'll be able to do this. Why wouldn't you do that? Again, I'm using examples here just so you guys
Yeah.
get the point. But that's roughly the gist of it. And you can be direct in saying this as well to them. Like that's what we start to do when we have our introductory calls or discovery calls. We refer to video as an investment. You say, like, what's the budget you set aside for this investment? And they're always taken aback by that. But it's true. If you're just getting if you're paying for video and not thinking about it like an investment, what are you doing? You're just wasting money.
Yeah, they're literally that's exactly it. They're wasting money, they're wasting their time, ultimately, not only our time, but theirs especially too. So why would you be throwing money into something when you don't know how it's going to help you, right? And this is kind of what I was elaborating a little bit more in my previous point, where you have to tie the investment to how it will help them kind of grow from it, right? You have to basically turn it into an investment in their eyes. You can't just tell them it's an investment, right? That's why I'm saying you have to relate it to their unique situation. And sometimes, and the first way to do that is ask those probing questions, ask why they're making the video, what is the purpose, how they're going to promote it, what problems or challenges they're going to be solving with it. And that inadvertently puts it in their minds that video is an investment because of all those things it is solving, right? It's about tying it in and kind of reframing, as you said, but inadvertently. You can't just tell someone this is an investment. Great.
No,
why
you
should they
can.
care?
No. You can tell them. Actually, I disagree.
I'm
You
saying
can,
that's not the only thing you have to do. You can't just say it. You have to do more. You have to also
you have to do
elaborate.
more, but you have to
Yeah.
start with, again, you start.
Yeah.
I get your point and it makes sense, but you have to start with reframing their mindset.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it's like when you go to the military, they don't just get you to go and do a couple of workouts and this or that. They shave your head, they like throw away your clothes, they give you a uniform, they make you, they break you down to build you back up. It's the same thing. You need to break them down to build them back up, right? Because the mindset that they have going into this 99% of the time is completely wrong. They're not
Welcome
seeing
to the
this.
Lapse Productions Army Boot Camp for clients. This is how we will start bringing
right,
you your
Gomer
investment.
Pyle. What is this, Gomer Pyle? Sir, a jelly donut, sir. A jelly donut.
What the hell is that?
I was watching that in the background earlier.
I mean, it's a good. That's not a background scene though. When that scene plays, everything else stops and you watch it.
I really wish I had that sergeant in my life. Just I'd be so successful by now. I'd be like a billionaire. People hated him, but he's like that's the best person to have in your life. But that guy would wake you up at 4. You'd be like, you'd be the best entrepreneur in the world. You'd have like your work ethic would be amazing.
Yeah.
Anytime you slack off, he just yells at you and makes you do like 100 laps.
You don't want to be doing 100 laps, then make sure you finish that proposal today. Maybe that's a good motivator, right?
Yeah. What are we at right now? What minute?
We're at an hour.
We're at an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe we could
I
just
think
do a
this
little
is
bit.
actually, I think this might actually though be a good point to kind of
You want to end it off
part
here?
1. Yeah, I think
we only went through 3, bro.
We only went through 3, but I think this actually might end up being a 2-parter because as I'm scrolling through, a lot of the other topics that are in those episodes we kind of touched upon a little bit here. But
oh yeah,
again,
we did.
But again, we will go through them. We will discuss them a little bit more in detail and kind of elaborate because there's a lot to unpack in these episodes. You can't really summarize it all in just 1 hour, all the ideas that we talked about. That's why we had 10 episodes that were an hour to an hour and a half each. It's a lot of things.
They were an
an
hour to hour 15. But yeah, it was a lot of stuff. I mean, we did post a lot of the highlights on Reels and TikTok. So if you're keeping your eyes peeled and following us on social media like you should be doing, then you would have gotten all the good chunks out of those. But if you didn't, then shame on you. And why are you watching this or listening to this?
How did you end up at the end of this video? Did you actually stay all the way? Really?
You know why? Because this is like the Cliff Notes episode. So they're like, okay, this one I'll watch.
This was the Wikipedia and the Spark Notes, from the old days.
Maybe we should do one more just to. But yeah, you're right. The other ones are very similar.
Yeah, I think this is a good point to cut it off at. And then
Do we
hey,
even
this
need to
gives us
do
more
another one?
content.
Like we pretty much touched on like.
Yeah, but I also just want to give the shout outs also to everyone in another episode.
True,
So
true.
the next one will be more of a rapid fire because we kind of highlighted a lot of the key.
We went through the meat
episodes
of
here.
this recap stuff.
Yeah. I wonder what the next recap will be after the next 10 episodes, right? So I'm curious.
Yeah, I want some new stuff. Like I don't want to hear the same stuff over and over again. And I think on that front, we have been kind of guiding the conversation towards topics that we're more interested in, because otherwise we'll just hear repeat and after repeat after repeat. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like we already have like 8 other episodes in the can,
Oh
and
my
there's
God.
another. There's another one scheduled. I haven't done any more outreach because I've been pushing it off for some weird reason, but I should probably
I've
get
been
back
doing
on that.
I've been slowly trying to get some more people. Like I'm really excited about some of the latest episodes that we had recorded because we started bringing in different types of people into the conversation. I think that's the first step. Up until I guess episode 28, maybe even episode 30 or so, we had a lot of pretty much very similar people where we're all small production companies, where we're kind of sharing our experiences, which is great. But a lot of us experience the exact same challenges, the exact same problems, like in different ways. But this is why we want to start bringing in different creatives from different parts of the industry where they can share a completely different mindset. Because we did one recently where some ideas were shared that completely reframed how we were thinking, because the way they were conducting their work worked for them, but we figured out ways that it could actually elevate our side of the business by doing it in our own way. Not necessarily exactly what they're doing, but getting ideas from it of how we can also improve. And that's kind of what we're trying to do also with this series is, show different people's backgrounds, their different types of worlds, and you might learn something as well, right?
I hope.
I hope.
But yeah.
Well, I think we can kind of leave it at that. Thanks for the select few that stayed all the way to the end of this video. Don't worry though, we will be dropping a couple different snippets from this for months to come, hopefully. So we'll see how it goes.
Nah, it usually lasts about a week.
I don't know. Maybe we had a couple decent sound bites in this one.
But yeah, in terms of going forward, there's gonna be a lot less pandemic questions. I think we've exhausted that one.
I'm tired of it.
Format is just introduction. They just quickly introduce their background, how they got into it, yada yada yada, and then we just pick out something to go into. That's essentially the new format for the show. And then you guys know how we do it. We always end it off with either what books are you reading? Because that's always good now. See what kind of stuff they're reading. Maybe we can read that as well. And like our favorite question, how did you get the name? That's pretty much it.
I would love to ask the questions of what is an awesome movie that you have seen recently, but unfortunately, a lot of the movies that are coming out these days are not as.
But if you're
are
asking
not
for
as good.
recent movies, like they're always just gonna say some dumb Marvel movie or something else.
Spider-Man.
There's only like Marvel movies that come out nowadays.
That's it. No. That's it.
Disney is single-handedly keeping the movie theaters alive.
That is, yeah, literally. No indie movie is making it into the theaters these days. It's all either on Netflix or, to be honest, Netflix is also kind of dying, which is kind of
Netflix is like the
surprising.
B movie graveyard.
It
You have
is-
a B movie,
It's
like it's all
B-movie
B
graveyard.
movies. Like that's all it is. And then Amazon Prime is like they have some classic
B-movies.
movies, and then like the good stuff is all like behind a paywall. It's like, oh, you want to
Exactly.
watch
It's
this?
this-
Ah, you got to
the
pay
Stars
for that
channel.
one.
It's like the
They
Stars
trick you.
channel.
They trick you until you click. You don't realize it until you click on it. You're like, wait a minute, I got to pay for this? What the hell?
Yeah. But anyways, I think that's a good point to leave it off. Thanks everybody for again supporting the show. However many of you are out there, hopefully we can grow that audience a little bit more and get a bigger outreach down the road. So
Yes,
thanks
please
again.
like, comment, follow, share. I don't know. Just get it out there. Subscribe.
Hit that like button. No, wait.
Follow. What else is left in the?
What else do YouTubers say these days?
I don't know. click on
in
my
the description
affiliated links,
below.
which we don't have. Just click
Our
on our
affiliated
website.
links.
Click on our website because it'll help us with SEO.
Actually, you know what? Might not be bad to do an affiliated links for all of our entire Zoom setup for recording. That actually might not be a bad idea. You want to have this production level quality of a Zoom call, then yeah.
Why would they pay? Why would they pay for the video production company? They got all this stuff.
But a Zoom call, I mean.
Huh?
For a Zoom call, I'm talking about.
What for Zoom call? No, I mean, whoever's listening to this either has their own company or they're in the field anyways. They got the equipment.
You know, it's actually kind of one last thing to note. I always found it funny anytime we hopped on a call with one of these companies and they noticed that we were with full HD setups for our cameras, and they're like, "Oh no, what do I do?" That happened a couple times, which was pretty funny.
Anyways, I think that's good. Let's end it off there.
Sounds good. All right, take care, everybody.